Imagine you could step inside the minds of Canada's healthcare leaders, glimpse their greatest fears, strongest drivers, and what makes them tick. Welcome to Healthcare Changemakers, a podcast where we talk to leaders about the joys and challenges of driving change and working with partners to create the safest healthcare system.
Hey listeners, it's Philip from Herock. I hope your day is going great. Ours is, as we got another fresh episode of Healthcare Changemakers. First off, thank you for listening. We really appreciate you taking time to listen to the stories of leaders from across the country. And today we've got another treat for you. We're chatting with Dr. Nicole Boutilier, Executive Vice President, Medicine and Clinical Operations from Nova Scotia Health. We actually heard from Nicole at our AGM and conference this year in April. She sat on a panel that spoke to AI opportunities in reducing administration burden and increasing time to care. There's some great things happening in Nova Scotia, and we hear all about them. So take a listen. Hey, listeners, we have a treat for you today. We are sitting down with Nicole. Hey, Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Why don't you tell listeners who you are, where you work, and what you do?
Sure. I'm Nicole Boutilier. I'm the Executive Vice President at Nova Scotia Health of Medicine and Clinical Operations. I am a family doctor by training and worked in emergency rooms and clinics and that throughout my career. And I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. It sounds like you wear many hats, Nicole. How do you keep all the balls up in the air?
It is easier for me now as my children are, in their 20s. So I have 3 children, they're all in their 20s. It used to be harder when I worked full time as a leader and more clinical. But and now I'm, most of my work is in my executive VP role. And life is busy, but I don't go with if I looked at every day, there's not a perfect balance, and it never will be. So I kind of take things, the opportunities I have for work when I need to, and the opportunities for home things and that when I need that.
No, great perspective. And so tell us a bit about your personal journey in healthcare and now, of course, health leadership as well.
Sure. So I started out, and I don't really recognize this until I started thinking back, but in medical school, I got involved with the Canadian Federation of Medical Students for my final 2 years. And, when I got into residency, I, was very interested in leadership there as well. And then when I started practice at first, I was I worked in Alberta at the time and, was kind of a full scope family doctor that did emergency and delivered babies. And I worked at Siksika First Nation at a clinic there. And so I was doing a lot of different things. I started having children and came back to Nova Scotia and ended up in emergency. So at that time when you were kind of, busy and having babies, when I went on my third maternity leave, it was going to be very short. They said, "Oh, it's your turn to be the department head." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I took it on kind of by accident. It was, enjoyed that work there and, eventually became VP of medicine at that hospital, which transitioned to a zonal-based role, then transitioned to a provincial role. And over the years, I, expanded from just medicine leadership to clinical operations leadership. And, it's been good. I've learned a lot of things along the way, obviously. And I would say, when I started, I would be, there was a conversation recently I saw at a presentation where they talked about disruptive physicians. And, I never saw myself as disruptive, but disruptor is a little bit different. And I would say, that's how I started my leadership. I had this story of my CEO at the time that gave me my first VP job. He actually rescued me from myself because when I was department head in Emerge, I had gone to a trauma meeting and they had talked about the data coming out of our hospital because we didn't have a helipad. And I went back and, mobilized all my friends and, called the executive to a meeting to tell them my displeasure at this, and and in all fairness, they were very kind about it, and eventually involved me on the committee that brought the helipad. And I learned so much, like, from what's different about being an idea, or having an innovative idea, or some data you wanted to work on, versus just how in a system you could be actually embody a leader in that space, and actually get people on your side. So that was a very early lesson, and I learned a lot along the way too. I became an executive coach doing my training at Royal Roads. And I did that because I was started to be in it long enough that I thought, gee, I'm seeing the same problems, and why can't I, I just didn't want to be the 911 person that people call when they have a problem. So really learning how to build capacity in other people, that was another big lesson that I learned, and really valued that approach, taking a coach approach with the people that work for you, and hearing and listening, and kind of building the capacity of people on your team. So my leadership journey, there's been lots of dips and things down the road, but I've learned lots, and actually being a leader is a really great job.
No, it is. I love your solutions-oriented mindset. That's what I wrote down as you were talking about your journey, and how you didn't, stop at no. That you're like, what, let's find solutions. And it didn't sound like you were trying to find solutions to, like I said, to be disruptive, but you were finding solutions to be a disruptor. And it sounds to me that you were bringing people along with you. I wrote down also how you mobilized your friends to have your back. I like that, because it shows that you are very community oriented. That's the first thing that, popped up to me when we met you here in Toronto at our conference, and that you want people to come with you, and not that you want to go ahead and be like, hey, yeah, follow me whenever you want. It's like, no, you come with me. Let's do and act together.
Absolutely. You cannot make changes in healthcare without the engagement and collaboration amongst many people. And, one of the things that I think, to get to that action framework, you really have to think about why you're saying no, and how you get to yes. And so that's one of the things that we really try to focus on at Nova Scotia Health is, it's not no, it's not maybe, it's yes. Yes, that's a good idea. And what do we need to get there? And how do we just enable the 40,000 people in our organization to be problem solvers?
Yeah.
And, and how do we set them up for success? And how do we really hear from the front lines, and, and all those things? And, we've set up a culture, which we referred to as operational excellence. And it really takes accountability framework and kind of the culture of an organization together, and makes a set of common approaches on how we do that, so that the system actually has an operating system that doesn't depend on me. It doesn't depend on a person. It depends on everyone together, and it should outlive many people's leadership, and it has the impact of having the benefit of all kinds of leaders' participation, including, the leaders we see on our front line every day.
Yeah, no, I love it. And so I'm happy you brought up where you work. We are hearing a lot about Nova Scotia is doing around innovation and research and technology. So the big question is, how would you describe Nova Scotia's healthcare's, its focus and its objectives overall?
Basically, embrace transformation. And, it started off, as a government-led initiative called Action for Health. And really, Nova Scotia Health had to look at themselves and say, how do we achieve some of the, very lofty goals, becoming a magnet for healthcare providers, or being a world-class system? How do we actually embrace the things internally that we need to do that? And, part of it was what I was talking about was the culture piece, but also, being open to new things, and really opening ourselves up to innovation. And, one of the things I think you're probably referring to is some of the digital spaces that we've been, transforming. We have an app called Your Health NS, And basically, patients can not only navigate the system on that with the help of an AI agent, but they also now have access to their own data through a patient summary, which would take their, it provides them with an ability to give a QR code to anyone that they see if they wanted to share their health information. So putting that data in the hands of the patients about themselves is probably one of the most transformative pieces that we've seen, and continue to, talk about how, data interoperability is so important. And, on top of that, we are going through the CIS, Clinical Information System, OPOR, provincial wide, one person, one record, and learning. And we're so excited about the data that will be coming out of that system as well to, keep us moving. And we have a new research consent framework where patients can join on themselves. And, similarly to as when you increase your or renew your healthcare or your health card for the province, they can now opt in to being contacted around research opportunities. And, and using research. And we're excited about all the recent announcements around research and AI and how that is going to shape the future of our province is really important to us.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess something to follow up on for our listeners, because there's a lot, you mentioned a lot of things there. A lot of change is happening. Yeah. How are you maybe personally, or even just you and your team, readying yourselves for this evolution and these changes so that there's no, I guess it probably speaks to the culture of what you're doing there, but so that people are embracing and not holding back?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is really important to bring people along with you and, having the proper engagement and doing all the right things in terms of, hearing and listening, but also moving. So you have to balance those things with moving forward.
Yes.
And one of the ways, it is through our operational framework, because the daily management system goes right down to the frontline staff. Oh. And it's embracing people around what we call our true north. And in our true north, we have foundations. There's the things that we're like impacting, which people would, find sustainability and quality and safety and things like that, and our goals within those things. But the foundations around it are just as important. And we have things like that with partnerships, innovation, research, digital, so all of those enablers of what we see as our whole operation will be there. So everybody sees that. It's posted everywhere in the hospitals, in our buildings outside of hospitals, in our community settings. And, everybody has their same true north, whether you work as, someone in environmental services or you work with someone like in the executive office. Everybody has the same focuses.
I love it. And it sounds to me that it's a really good concerted communications, I wouldn't say plan, but strategy to ensure everyone's on the same page. They're all connected. They all understand. I think as a communicator myself, I know the value, not the great importance of keeping people informed.
Exactly. We have an internal site that is focused on operational excellence so that people can get the resources that they need from that. But also in terms of that, when you said that about it being like everybody on the same page, well, we actually call it our strategy on a page because it's one page. And people can, it's really recognizable. A lot of the folks have it on the bottom of their emails. Like it's something like we talk about and refer to all the time.
Yeah. I love it. And I like that I love that you mentioned the name of it, because keeping things simple is also very important in healthcare or in general when it comes to communication.
You're right.
We hear a lot that the historic focus on all things acute means that we are playing a bit of catch up in relation to primary care and community care. So I guess, what are your thoughts on that? And, even taking a step further, the interaction and interdependencies between community care and the rest of the system.
It's very important to us here, to actually look at what we're doing. And we want to provide the very best acute care that we can. there's no question. But for too long, we've not focused on the foundations of our system, which, really is primary healthcare and chronic disease management. So we've been rebuilding our primary healthcare system and focusing on every Nova Scotian and how we get access for every Nova Scotian, how we connect them virtually in the community if we need to, if we, really look at our services and what can be moved to the community. And we haven't set a formal goal, but, we have read things, across many different sectors around, how much of your care should be in the community. Places like Cleveland Clinic have said 80%. And, where is that for us? And really focusing on those health homes, those health neighborhoods. We have a whole project called Health Beyond the Hospital. And, really focusing on how much our community matters to the impact on how the whole rest of the system functions. And we put a lot of effort into focusing on transforming that part of the system as the foundation. Yeah. And without that, it's hard to move forward on all your goals in acute care.
Oh, absolutely. And what can leaders who are listening now do today to help drive impact around, greater partnerships? Because I'm imagining all the things you've mentioned throughout our conversation so far involves dealing with other people, other groups, other, committees, whoever they may be, other partners. And so, collaboration is very critical. And, and it sounds to me there's been a lot of thinking outside the box by you and your team. So I guess, what can leaders do today to help drive that impact around partnerships, collaboration, and being innovative in ways that maybe people may have not be used to or seen?
Absolutely. You're nowhere without your partners, whether it's foundations, it's, unions, it can be academic institutions, it can be like doctors, organizations, all of those things. And everybody has a role to play. And when you come together, it really makes a difference on how you're able to solve problems together. And hearing from others about their pain points around the same issues that you have pain points about. Like our Health Beyond the Hospital is one of the key ones where we have community services. We have, seniors in long-term care. Everyone that has a role in how people thrive in the community are coming together to make those trips to the hospital less needed, and really focusing on how do we keep people healthy in their communities. And partnerships are the only way you get there. Like there is no other way, because you're an operator of a system, and there's many things that live beyond your doors. Like our recruitment team is one of the real examples of that. We have an internal recruitment team that we've built over time. And one of the key pieces to our success is the community partnerships and those grassroots efforts that the communities have put into developing their own welcoming committees, welcoming community, even organizations. Like we have organizations across the province that have actually formed and pick up the pieces where the recruitment system and the Nova Scotia Health system ends, and becoming incredible partners at, making people realize that they can stay in these communities or that they can come to these communities. So without some of the partnerships that we have, you don't have the successes. So everything we do is really our way of bringing in other folks and having successes come from every area and sharing those successes. You don't need to own success. You need to help make other people successful. They need to help you be successful. And so partnerships really, if we're solving healthcare things, it's not just about the operating system. It's about everybody around you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that you mentioned you're a certified executive coach. So tell listeners a bit more about this, and help us understand why you personally believe in the power of coaching, and of course, what do you get out of it too?
Yeah, that's another great question. When I found I was retreading the same steps every time, I looked at it in terms of what was I doing that I was having the repeated problems from different places. And I thought to myself, I need to kind of fix this. There's something going on. And then I was lucky enough to see a presentation on coaching. The Canadian Physicians Society had a conference, and it really kind of sparked my interest in it. And I looked more at it. And really, when you get down to it, coaching is about recognizing the potential in other people and helping them achieve it just by listening and like a partner in like thinking. And it really is a way for yourself to actually reflect the mirror back on yourself and what you're seeing, and to actually, enable someone else to do the same. And so with coaching, you'll learn as much as you actually assist, because you're actually expanding your own mind, coming to it with sort of like that so-called beginner's mindset where, you haven't really heard about this problem before, and you're looking at it in a new way, and you're enabling someone else to find their potential. And, as a coach, you say you want to hold people capable, and people are capable, and you just need to give them the opportunity.
You were recently honored by the Canadian Society of Physician Leaders with the 2026 Chris Carruthers Excellence in Medical Leadership Award. Congratulations, Nicole.
Thank you.
Your commitment to fostering a culture of trust, psychological safety, and shared accountability was highlighted. So I guess, taking all that into consideration, what advice would you give other healthcare, leaders and organizations on fostering this culture, that you were recognized for as well?
Thanks. It was a big honor to win that award. Certainly nothing I was ever expecting. So it's hard to say of any one thing or, for advice. But I think the biggest thing is, being true to who you are and, who you're serving. And, for me, it's been Nova Scotians for the last, 24 years. And, that's really important to me. And, remembering that what we are doing impacts your community, your families, your friends, like people that are important to you. And, keeping that in your mind, it always steers you in the right direction. And, one of the things that, there's not always immediate payoffs for things that you do. It's not like other industries. There's always something tomorrow coming down the pipeline that you need to concentrate on, or that's the new problem, the new emerging problem. And, and realizing that it's not over like one thing, that's going to, it's over when I can look back now over a 30-year career and see all the little pieces, and it makes it worthwhile every day. And that's really, I think, the key is to keep yourself, focused on what's important. There's a lot of noise, and just move forward with the patient at the center of your thoughts and following through on that, no matter where you're leading or what you're leading in health. It always steers you in the right path.
Oh, that's great advice. And I love that point, that kind of aspect you gave about, it's all the little things along the way that help form and make that impact and that change. And it kind of goes really well with your point about partnerships, because it's all the different interactions you have and the people you bring along with you that really show the successes. It's not just one individual or one initiative.
That's right. Because, the initiatives will come and go and the directions will come and go. But the one thing that stays the same is, that you're trying to make a better system for the people that use it. And that stays constant.
Yeah. I think my last question kind of sums it all up, but I'll ask it anyways in case you have a new revelation. But thinking about what keeps people up at night, and I can tell you have a great optimism and passion in your voice. I can hear it, Nicole. And so, are there things that we should be, as a collective across the country, be focusing on to, tap into your optimism, drive impact even that much further in the system?
Well, I would say that there's a lot of things coming at us that are going to change the system fundamentally in the digital space, in the AI space, in the research space. And it's exciting and it's new. And we need to be prepared to catch it. And we need to remember that the relational aspect of healthcare is not going away and it can't be compromised. And, remembering that and still taking advantage of the other things, like not being so scared of that we're losing that we don't take advantage of the ways that will improve things for our patients and our communities. You just really have to think about, how do I keep those important like human aspects of medicine there, and wanting to keep that, like I said, like keep those things in center, the human aspects. You can use a lot of these tools to really help the human aspect, and we just need to remember that as we go forward.
No, absolutely. I love that we ended off with this human aspect. I was at an event yesterday, and we were talking. It was a marketing event, but the whole point was like, yeah, there's lots of great tools out there like AI and different models and frameworks and everything. But at the end of the day, at this conference, we were talking about just looking at banks and how banks are leaning back into like, oh yeah, like it's all about the human and come to our branch and not to us. Yes. And it's so funny that you just mentioned this. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what people desire, like in general. So I like that you ended off with that.
Calling all art lovers and appreciators, we can all agree that art is central to understanding human experience and can provide valuable insights into innovation, leadership, and strategy. HEROC's new strategic plan, The Art of Safety, pulls from both the art and healthcare worlds. It leans into the idea that each person in the Canadian healthcare system has unique skills and talents that are valued. Most importantly, each is a gifted professional, or better yet, a unique artist who is there for their community. Learn more about the Art of Safety by heading over to HEROC.com or by clicking the link under mentioned in this episode. Enjoy the episode.
I'm going to go into the lightning round. These are just really short questions. You answer them how you wish, one line or, many lines. But my first question for you, Nicole, is what was your first job ever, your very first job?
I did tutoring and I did piano lessons and singing lessons in my house for other kids in the neighborhood. But my first actual paid job was at McDonald's.
That's a good one.
It was a great learning experience. And they talked about quality, service, value, and cleanliness. So all good points that you need to bring with you to other organizations.
Right. What's one piece of advice a mentor shared with you that stuck with you ever since?
I think one of the best things that has carried me through the rocky and ups and downs of changes and things was that really it's about focusing on the priorities and blocking out things that will come and go in healthcare. Politics, big P, little p, everything comes and goes. And there's always noise and distraction away from the important things. But focus, yourself on doing the job you're supposed to be doing.
That's a good one. Finish this sentence. If I wasn't in healthcare, I'd be doing...
writing books.
Oh, that's a good one. And if you could host a podcast tomorrow on any topic at all, what would your show be about and who would you want as your guest?
It's funny because when I answered the last one, it immediately popped in my head that I'd probably be talking about books and like inviting, like if I had a dream, like guests would be some authors and things like that. So I was thinking yesterday, I just finished the book Whistler by Ann Patchett. I was thinking, gee, I'd like to talk to her about that. So that was what sprung into my mind.
Very cool. Well, we'll make sure Ann hears this point. maybe
I think she's going to be pretty popular after this book. Yeah.
And she'll give you a call. Anyways, no, those are great answers. I thank you so much, Nicole, for this conversation. I took many notes here for some great nuggets of wisdom you shared with the community. And I think that this episode will really make people feel optimistic, make us feel like we can do this together. And I'm so happy that you were able to share that with all of us.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Thank you for listening. You can hear more episodes of Healthcare Changemakers on our website, HEROC.com, and on your favorite podcasting apps. If you like what you hear, please rate us or post a review. Healthcare Changemakers is recorded by HEROC's Communications and Marketing Team and produced by Podfly Productions. Follow us on Twitter at HEROC Group or email us at communications@heroc.com. We'd love to hear from you.